She was drafted #1 to her girlfriend's team. Paige Bueckers and Azzi Fudd are on the same team. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Wait, is there an exemption for lesbian women in basketball that are co-workers to be able to have the sex? I mean, everybody else in the world gets a memo. That memo says don't be stooping a coworker, and if you are stooping a coworker, you got to let us know that you're stooping a coworker. So did
that facial expression right there tells you everything about how controversial this topic has become. We're watching someone navigate a conversation they know is going to generate massive backlash no matter what position they take. And that's because what's happening in Dallas right now with Paige Bueckers and Azzi Fudd isn't just another WNBA storyline. It's forcing the league to confront a question that's been simmering beneath the surface for years. What happens when personal relationships start influencing professional basketball decisions? The Dallas Wings used the #1 overall pick in the 2025 WNBA draft on Azzi Fudd. That same franchise already has Paige Bueckers, the 2024 #1 pick. These two aren't just teammates, they're publicly dating. They won a national championship together at UConn, and now they're both on the same professional roster. The reaction from fans, analysts, and media members has been immediate and intense.
Fudd situation with Azzi Fudd getting drafted #1, largely in due part to her being Paige Bueckers' girlfriend. You can spare me with trying to convince me she should #1 pick. There's no way she should have been #1 pick over Lauren Betts, Olivia Miles, or an Iowa fam. I'm sorry. I just got to keep it real. Okay, now we have seen this stuff play out. People are talking about it. I know this is a touchy subject for some people, but this is a topic that is being spoke about now. So let's get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video. That would be greatly appreciated. Let's get right into things. So
here's where the controversy gets real. Dan from Outkick didn't hold back, and his perspective represents what a significant portion of basketball fans are thinking but won't say publicly. The fundamental question he's raising isn't about anyone's personal life. It's about professional standards that exist in virtually every other workplace in America. Corporate America has clear policies about workplace relationships. When two employees start dating, HR gets involved. Disclosures are required. In many cases, one person has to transfer departments or even leave the company entirely. These policies exist for good reasons: conflicts of interest, favoritism concerns, and the potential chaos that unfolds when relationships end badly. But the WNBA operates differently. There's no formal policy addressing romantic relationships between teammates. And that lack of structure is creating situations that are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore.
What happens if they break up and they teammates?
That's a great question. We saw the messiness and the problems with Alyssa Smith, Dejanay Carrington in Dallas. We saw things going on. It was a lot going on.
Is the more pressing players.
What happens if they break up and they teammates?
Now that is the more pressing issue to me.
If you talk, Trey.
If there is extramarital, they're not married, but extenuating circumstances outside the relationship, it would be very difficult to leave that at the door. We all, as employees of whatever companies that we work for, teams that y'all have played for, you have to leave your baggage at the door. That is just customary in the workplace.
Now we're getting into the practical implications. The Speakeasy crew is asking the question that matters most. What happens when this relationship ends? And they're right to focus on that scenario, because we've already watched this exact situation play out in the WNBA with devastating consequences. Let's talk about Dejanay Carrington and Alyssa Smith. These two were dating while playing for different teams during Caitlin Clark's rookie season in 2024. Indiana Fever fans watched in real time as this relationship actively damaged their team's chemistry. During a Connecticut Sun versus Indiana Fever game, Carrington poked Clark in the eye. It was a hard foul that left Clark visibly shaken. Every teammate on that Fever roster should have immediately defended their star player. But Alyssa Smith didn't move. She didn't say a word. She watched her girlfriend commit a questionable foul on her own teammate and chose silence. That moment crystallized the problem. Smith was more loyal to her girlfriend on the opposing team than to the teammates she shared a locker room with every single day.
If some sort of cheating happens, if there is some sort of DV situation that happens, and it doesn't even have to be that extreme. One of them didn't do laundry that day, and she's upset about it before they cut. It can be very hard to leave those types of things at work Whereas, like, in a normal situation where you're not working with your partner or playing with your partner, you get to leave the house. I go to work, I'm at work, I talk to a coworker, you know, we chop it up about basketball, whatever. It lightens my mood. I go home, we back, we good. I gotta leave the house, go to work, see you at work. We still upset. I haven't had time to cool off, decompress. You haven't had time to cool, and now I gotta act like I want to throw you this dime wide open in the paint. It's tough.
I think we forget.
I'm telling you, this stuff get tricky. This stuff can get real tricky. I'm just saying it can get tricky.
Getting about the main part, it is still professional basketball.
Yep.
And the franchise players matter more than all this stuff y'all talking about. So if this was Luka, because you love Luka.
The DeJounte Carrington and Alyssa Smith saga didn't end there. It actually got worse. After that incident, both players ended up getting traded to the Dallas Wings. And here's where it gets wild. The Wings front office publicly admitted they only acquired Alyssa Smith because they wanted DeJounte Carrington. They literally said out loud that they traded for a player not because of her basketball value, but because she was dating the player they actually wanted. Both players underperformed dramatically in Dallas. The experiment failed. They got traded again, this time to separate teams. Smith landed with the Las Vegas Aces and won a WNBA championship. Meanwhile, rumors started circulating that Carrington was now involved with her Aces teammate Jackie Young. Reports emerged of the two being spotted together at hotels before games, traveling together during road trips. Think about the awkwardness of that situation. Alyssa Smith just won a championship with this team, and now there's speculation that her ex-girlfriend is dating one of her current teammates. How does that locker room function? How do you build team chemistry when personal drama is constantly bubbling beneath the surface?
Good. If Luka wanted to date or one of his girlfriends, she's the franchise.
So I was just going to add more context here. So the two played at Connecticut last year, won a national championship together. Yes, they've been dating since then. Played during this season. Also, this isn't something that's like abnormal. Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner are a married couple in the WNBA. Also,
Listen from Harrisburg.
Yeah, okay. There's also more like crazy situations. DeJounte Carrington and her girlfriend Alyssa Smith, they were broken up. They ended up getting back together afterwards. They were broken up, and a scuffle ended up happening on the court between
opponents.
but between opponents, DeJounte Carrington and the other one, and then they ended up coming and defending their like partner against their own teammate, which was kind of crazy. Then they ended up getting traded to the same team, I think. Anyway, but I think it's a look. This also just in general, this kind of makes the W really fun. I'll be honest with you. This makes the W fun. But I will say this: it is an interesting situation because of something.
This is the reality check the WNBA needs to hear. The league has multiple documented cases of romantic relationships between players creating professional complications. It's not hypothetical, it's not speculation, we've watched it happen repeatedly. Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner have been together for years and play for different teams. That relationship has generally stayed out of the headlines, though Fever fans still remember when Bonner was negotiating with Indiana, while apparently planning the entire time to end up in Phoenix with Thomas. That's the kind of behind-the-scenes maneuvering that raises questions about whether player movement is being influenced by factors beyond basketball. The difference with Paige Bueckers and Azzi Fudd is the stakes involved. These aren't role players or veterans at the end of their careers. These are back-to-back #1 overall picks. The Dallas Wings are building their entire franchise around these two players. They're investing max contract money, marketing resources, and their competitive future in this partnership. What happens if they break up? Not if there's cheating or drama, just a regular breakup. Do you trade one of them? Which one? The franchise player who was there first or the #1 pick you just drafted? Do you force them to coexist in the same locker room, on the same court, for 80+ days a year including training camp, regular season, and potentially playoffs?
Thing like you said, trade does go awry. You're trading a #1 overall pick now? It's a different situation when it's AZ Fudd and it's Paige Bueckers, two back-to-back #1 overall picks playing in the same exact team. It's a difficult situation. Now, granted, the Dallas Wings have been terrible. They have been my team. They're awful, and they're trying to get back to being a whole lot better. But in a situation like that, it's going to result in a trade. We've seen it before. We've seen it whenever where two partners aren't getting along, or they are getting along and they want to end up playing together. It ends up being something that becomes a part of the league story. And I think that in itself, I'm not here to say whether it's right or whether it's wrong, but it is something that could be concerning in a way. Just because you never know how that's going to turn out. If these two end up getting in some sort of adulterous situation. I pray not. They actually seem like very happy together. But if that ends up being the case, how do you show up to work every single day? We see this in the professional world already. Yeah. When you're working with your partner or husband, spouse, whatever it is, you end up having...
Here's the part that makes this situation unique and why it's generating so much debate. The Speakeasy panel is absolutely right that this dynamic doesn't exist in other major professional sports leagues. You don't see this in the NBA, NFL, MLB, or NHL. And that's not because romantic relationships don't happen in those leagues. It's because the structure of those leagues makes it nearly impossible for couples to end up as teammates. The WNBA has only 12 teams. The player pool is significantly smaller. Many players come from the same college programs where they've already formed close relationships. The league's compressed schedule and travel requirements create an environment where players spend enormous amounts of time together. All of these factors combine to create situations that simply don't occur in men's professional sports. But here's what's really interesting. The WNBA has positioned itself as a progressive league that celebrates player authenticity. Players are encouraged to be themselves, to speak out on social issues, to live openly. That's genuinely positive. But it also means the league has to navigate complications that come with that openness. When Paige Bueckers and Azzi Fudd's relationship became public, the response from WNBA fans was largely celebratory. People loved seeing two-star players happy together. The Yukon connection added to the narrative. But now that they're on the same professional team, the conversation is shifting. People are starting to ask whether the Dallas Wings made a basketball decision or a personal accommodation.
Situations where maybe there was something where they were crazy at home. You're leaving that job.
You know, the other thing that we haven't also talked about is like when there is one that is less talented, but the two are still connected. Remember, there's been several coaches where it's like, hey, I'm not going to fire this person, so fire me. This just happened. A dude wasn't going to fire like his OC. Who I think was like his son too. So like,
you're talking about Kirk Ferentz at Iowa.
Yeah,
his son. So
like, why the heck
he ended up having to sign.
Yes.
He ended up having.
Add context.
Yeah.
Kirk Ferentz is the longest tenured college football coach at the time.
Yes,
like
still
21 years.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hey, Kirk, your son was the offensive coordinator. Iowa's offense atrocious historically.
Awful.
They ended up finally having to put into a contract, hey, if you do not average like
25 points
a game,
This is where the debate gets heated. Was Azzi Fudd the best player available at number 1? That's the question that's dividing WNBA fans right now. And it's a legitimate question to ask. Lauren Betts from UCLA was considered by many draft analysts to be the top prospect. She's a dominant post player who can anchor a defense and score efficiently in the paint. The WNBA has been moving toward more perimeter-oriented play, but elite big women who can protect the rim are still incredibly valuable. Olivia Miles from Notre Dame was another name frequently mentioned as a potential number 1 pick. She's a dynamic point guard with elite vision and playmaking ability. Her passing skills are generational, and she's the type of player who makes everyone around her better. Then there's Kiki Iriafen, who had an exceptional college season and brought a combination of size, skill, and versatility that translates well to the professional level. But Dallas took Azzi Fudd, and the immediate reaction from a significant portion of the basketball community was skepticism. Not because Fudd isn't talented, she absolutely is, but because the circumstances made it impossible to separate the basketball evaluation from the personal relationship.
contract, we have to fire your son.
Everyone knew about it.
Because Kirk was like, I'm not firing my son. If you want to fire my son, fire me.
Yeah.
I've seen coaches, from what I heard, even Chip Kelly and Jerry Azzinaro were like this. Jerry Azzinaro was the defensive line coach, Coach Frederick Cox and Autumn Cast. When Chip got fired, Azzinaro, from what I heard, stopped showing up to work.
Damn.
Like, Chip gone? I'm gone too.
Yeah.
Azzinaro ended up going to be the DC with Chip at UCLA. So just to tell y'all how close they are. Yeah. So I've seen certain situations where it's like, hold on, if I'm this close to somebody, if y'all do her like this or do him like this, y'all might as well do me like this too. That would be kind of my only.
And also, even just to like read between the lines on that story, it works the same. Like if he's out, I'm out. But then also, you said Chip Kelly got to UCLA and brought his mans with him, so it worked. The inverse works too. Like if you want me, you also got to bring my mans on board too. But I wanted to ask y'all, because if things like this keep happening, we have incidents where teammates are feuding because they're partners and they're defending their partner over teammates, and it's just kind of a conundrum of things. Should the W try to implement a rule that, like, you know, corporate America implements, where there's no dating in the professional world? Is that a rule that y'all could see? Do you think it's needed? Is it justified, or is it
It's not needed
out of
yet,
bounds for the
'cause it's
W?
That's a great question. That's a great question, bruh.
almost like, before seatbelts were mandated. Until you see a crash, it's not needed. Kieran's point was the closest we saw to the crash with Dejanay, when like you're fighting your teammate to protect your girl,
That's on the other team.
Yeah, it's not.
Your
It's not.
ex-girl though. It wasn't even they were together.
Yeah,
and then
you're right.
It ended up being like a
Ex-girl.
league thing. That
I think it's
And you know what? It's gonna be interesting to see how that Alyssa Smith, Jackie Young thing play out in Vegas now. Like, that's gonna be awkward. That's gonna be very awkward. So listen, man, this is becoming a very, very big topic, and it's something that you can't run from. It is what it is. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think about it. This is Keep the Vision.
Let's address the elephant in the room. Should the WNBA implement a formal policy prohibiting romantic relationships between teammates? That's the question being asked right now, and it's not an easy one to answer. The arguments in favor of such a policy are straightforward. Every major corporation in America has policies governing workplace relationships. These policies exist to prevent conflicts of interest, protect against favoritism, and minimize disruption when relationships end. Professional sports teams are businesses. Players are employees. The same logic that applies to corporate America could reasonably apply to professional basketball. If two players on the same team start dating, the team would have options. They could allow it with full disclosure to management. They could require one player to request a trade. They could implement restrictions on how the relationship affects team dynamics. The key is having a framework in place before problems emerge. But the arguments against such a policy are equally compelling. The WNBA has built its brand on player empowerment and authenticity. Implementing relationship restrictions could be seen as regressive and controlling. It would also be incredibly difficult to enforce. How do you define a relationship? What about friendships that become romantic? What about players who date but keep it private? There's also a practical consideration. The WNBA player pool is relatively small, and many players know each other from college, USA basketball, or previous professional experiences. Relationships are going to happen. Trying to legislate them out of existence might create more problems than it solves. The better approach might be transparency and planning. If two players are in a relationship and one is about to be drafted or traded to the other's team, that should be disclosed to management. The team can then make an informed decision about whether they're comfortable with the situation. If a relationship develops between existing teammates, same thing. Disclose it, discuss it, plan for potential complications. What the WNBA cannot do is ignore this issue and hope it resolves itself. The Dejounte Carrington and Alyssa Smith situation proved that these relationships can actively damage team chemistry and competitive performance. The Paige Bueckers and Azzi Fudd situation is now under a microscope because of the stakes involved. If this goes badly, if the relationship ends and creates locker room drama, if one player demands a trade and the franchise has to choose between two #1 picks, the entire league is going to face questions about why there wasn't a policy in place to prevent this scenario. Here's what makes this particularly tricky for Dallas. The Wings have been rebuilding for years. They've struggled with attendance, fan engagement, and on-court performance. Landing Paige Bueckers with the 2024 #1 pick was supposed to be the turning point. She's a generational talent with massive marketing appeal. Then they got the #1 pick again in 2025 and took Azzi Fudd. If you're the Wings front office, you're now invested in making this work. You can't afford for this relationship to implode and take your franchise rebuild down with it. You've got 2 max contracts, enormous expectations, and a fan base that's been waiting years for relevance. The pressure on these 2 players is immense, and it's not just basketball pressure. They have to navigate their personal relationship while carrying the weight of an entire franchise's future. Compare that to Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner. They're veterans. They've been together for years. They play for different teams, so if there's ever conflict, they're not in the same locker room every day. The stakes are lower, the scrutiny is less intense, and they've proven they can maintain both a personal relationship and professional careers without drama. But Bueckers and Fudd are in their early 20s. They're navigating the pressure of being #1 picks, the expectations of turning around a struggling franchise, and the intense media attention that comes with being a high-profile couple in professional sports. That's an enormous burden for anyone, let alone 2 players at the start of their careers. And here's the thing about young relationships. They're volatile. Most relationships that start in your early 20s don't last forever. That's not cynicism, that's statistics. People change, priorities shift, and relationships that made sense at one point in your life don't always survive as you grow and evolve. So what happens if Paige and Azzi break up in 2 years? What if one of them meets someone else? What if the pressure of being teammates and partners becomes too much and they decide they need space? The Wings would be forced into an impossible situation. You can't trade both of them. You probably can't keep both of them. And whichever player you choose to move, you're essentially admitting that you made a draft decision based on a personal relationship that didn't work out. That's the nightmare scenario Dallas is hoping to avoid. And it's why this situation is generating so much conversation. People aren't rooting for this relationship to fail, but they're also not naive about the risks involved. The WNBA is at a crossroads. The league can continue operating without formal policies and hope that teams make good decisions. Or it can implement guidelines that provide structure and protection for both players and franchises. Neither option is perfect, but doing nothing and hoping for the best is starting to look like the riskiest choice of all. What's your take? Should the WNBA implement policies governing romantic relationships between teammates? Is Dallas taking an unnecessary risk by building their franchise around a couple? And if you were running a WNBA team, would you draft a player knowing they're dating your franchise cornerstone? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is just getting started. And if you want more WNBA analysis that doesn't shy away from the complicated topics, hit that subscribe button. This league is evolving fast, and we're going to be here covering every development.